Welcome everyone to our February webinar. Our topic this month is called Get in My Laserfiche Now, import profiles that save your users time and standardize metadata. My name is Schmitty and I'm going to be your presenter today. And before we get going, we're just going to wait a few moments for everyone else to file into the webinar. And while we're waiting, I am just going to go ahead and review some webinar etiquette real quick. Today we've got everyone in listen-only mode, but we do want your questions. They're very important to us. So please feel free to either raise your hand or type your question in the Q&A section. We do have folks from CDI that are going to be monitoring that. And if there's a question that's a little more on the complicated side, or we don't know the answer to it right away, we will note it down and follow up. Okay. So that being said, we'll just give everyone just a few minutes here and then we'll get it kicked off. All right, let's go ahead and get started, everyone. So just to review again, our topic for today is called Get in My Laserfiche Now, and it's all about using import profiles to save time and standardize metadata. All right, so getting started right away, before we even talk about what import profiles are, I'd like to say what problems can import profiles solve for us. So some of the things that they can solve for us is that naming conventions for our documents, they might not be set up in a standard way, right? And that can be really confusing. It can cause issues where documents can be missed because they have the wrong name, or for example, we're used to having a date on the end of documents, and maybe somebody is importing them manually into a folder and they didn't actually remember to put the date on the end of it. Right, so that can be an issue. Documents of the same type might not all be filed in the same place or the correct place, right? So let's say we always have a report that we're expecting to download every month, and then every month has their own folder, right? And then we all want those folders to be all in the same place. Well, if we're doing things manually, it's really easy to misfile something, right? Especially if you're in a folder that's called, February 2022, except you're in the wrong top level folder, right? You might be in the wrong department. So that's another issue that using import profiles can solve for us. What if the wrong template gets applied to our documents, right? That can cause downstream issues, such as maybe we have a workflow set up that is set to look for documents with a certain template applied to them. Well, if the wrong one gets applied, our workflow that we're expecting to run on that document might never run. So those are 3 examples of issues that utilizing import profiles can solve for us. So what can import profiles do? They can allow us to configure a default name, a default folder path, a template, and a volume for imported documents of a particular type, right? So you can use some, all, or none of those options if we want to, right? We can have the import profile configure a name and default path, but not set the template. Maybe we want to do that ourselves. When using import profiles, when a document is getting imported, you can select the import profile from the list of available profiles. This means we don't have to manually find the appropriate path, drag and drop from there, then select the template, and then fill out any fields after that. As well as that, when we use import profiles, we can specify which volume, right? And that's important for data storage and for things like backups, right? Let's say we need to move servers in a few years. Well, if the wrong volume got applied to an entire folder, it might not be in the correct volume with all the other documents of its type. It's another possible issue that import profiles can resolve for us. We can also customize our import profiles. we can use an import profile to dynamically extract information from the name of the file. And we're going to look at this in a live demo in just a little bit. What we can do with the import profile is utilize the file name format option. And that allows us to actually go ahead and specify a custom token name. Right? We do not have to use the pre-existing tokens, although you can still use global tokens that apply, such as the global date token. If we're naming something with today's date on the end of it, for example. Our custom token or tokens that we made can then be used to actually populate the name of the document. As well as that, we can also apply the same token or tokens for the path as well. So in a nutshell, based on the document's name itself and how it's configured, we can file it and rename it. When we're doing this, we can actually specify more than one component of the file name. This will also be talked about in our demo. When we're doing so, we need what's called a delimiter in order to help the system understand what the various components of the file name are. And the delimiter is just a symbol that we're going to use to separate out the parts of our file name, right? So for example, and this is the one we'll be using in our demo in a moment, we can use the dash character to separate the file name into components, right? So say I have 3 different components in my file name. I would want to separate each of those with a dash, right? So let's say the first part of my file name is the description. The second part of my file name is the department. And then the third part of my file name is the date or the month, right? So this example, it would be description dash department dash month. And this will be a little more clear when we actually look at the example in our demo, right? So there we've got our another example of department, date, and then urgent or not urgent. That's another file name that you could use in conjunction with an import profile to get that file in the right folder. So once we actually go ahead and get the import profile set up, we can select it when importing a profile to apply the settings to that file. In the Laserfiche web client, that looks like the button called Use Import Profiles. And then from there, it's simply a drop-down menu with the profiles that are already existing on there. When we're doing the file naming, all 3 of those components of the file name that we were talking about a moment ago, they're all going to get their own token applied. Continuing on here, in our document path option, we can specify our custom path for documents created using this profile. You also, like I was saying a moment ago, have the option to not specify a path. And what the system will do in that case is simply use the folder that you already have open at the time of the document being imported into the system, right? So much like other Laserfiche tools, the import profiles themselves can be configured to be really as dynamic as we want them to be, right? We can use them in conjunction with a folder that we already have open, or we can actually specify custom path name and get them filed in a different folder other than the one that we're in right now. Right, so it saves a lot of clicking. And finally, if the folders do not already exist, much like when utilizing workflow, the system will prompt us and ask if we wanted to create those folders when we actually go ahead and run our import. When we're actually ready to complete the import process, or we're creating the process of creating an import profile, we have a few different options. We have the option of saying apply to myself, and this means that when the import profile is created, it will only be seen by you. Nobody else will see the import profile. So that can be useful if, For example, you have a task to do of importing documents that maybe nobody else needs to see that import profile. So in this case, you'd use the apply to myself option. On the other hand, we can use the apply to the following group option to actually share the profile with a specified group. You can use the everyone group if you want to. In general, we don't recommend utilizing the everyone group because that is truly everyone. But if you did so, it would share the import profile with all users. So maybe you're an admin and you need to go ahead and set up profiles that can be seen by anyone. Maybe we're hiring a bunch of temps to help us scan in this huge batch of documents we got. And every single temporary employee needs to utilize those import profiles to get that done. Well, in that case, you could utilize the everyone group, or you could create a group just for temporary employees and apply it to that group. Okay. So again, we have lots of options here. And just to note that you must have the privilege called Manage Repository Configuration in order to actually go ahead and share import profiles with a group or groups of people. So without that privilege, any profile that you create will only apply to you yourself. Let's talk about a common question that comes up regarding import profiles, and that is, can we use them to actually populate metadata? An import profile's functionality is limited to applying 4 items here, which is the name, the path, the template, and the volume. However, we can go ahead and use a workflow in conjunction with import profiles. And we're going to talk about that in one of our examples. Just as a quick example, you could use that to run a workflow when a document matching certain criteria is moved to a certain folder. And then that could get moved to that folder automatically by the import profile, and then the workflow takes over, right? In that case, we'd have our workflow set up to monitor that particular folder that the import profile is going to move our document into, right? So there's no risk of the workflow starting inappropriately if someone forgot to move the document to the correct folder, right? Because their import profile is going to take care of that for us automatically. All right, time for a little bit of a demo. And during our demo today, we're going to be talking about characters from Parks and Recreation as our example. So let's take a look at what can happen, what can go wrong when we don't use import profiles, right? So I've got 3 folders here. Each of them are going to be a different example. Firstly, we've got Jerry. He's got a folder here for documents that he physically scans in. If you go ahead and open that up, we can see he's got a document here. He's named it document and with today's date. So it's not very descriptive, Jerry. It just says document. Jerry is going to go ahead and manually file this, right? So let's look at our main folder here. Let's go up to our top level. We've got Park Projects 2022 and Park Projects 2021. Well, because this is Jerry's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, he accidentally puts the document in our Park Projects 2021 folder because he forgot that it's 2022. Right? So let's actually go into our 2021, and then we're going to drag and drop this in here. We'll go ahead and automatically rename. Now, Jerry's going to go ahead and manually apply a template to this document. The template that Jerry is trying to apply is called Leslie Nope's Urgent Documents, right? Now, Leslie has a workflow set up in our example to automatically email her whenever any document in the entire system has her template assigned, right? That way she never misses anything, even if it gets uploaded late in the evening by an automated process, she always wants to get that email because we know Leslie, she's a workaholic, right? So Jerry goes to do that, except he accidentally misclicks and he uses the template called Lil Sebastian appearance request, because it's right next to Leslie's template there on our list. He doesn't catch that, and he just hits import, finishes creating the document. Now we've got a document with a very unhelpful name, right? It's not really descriptive. It doesn't really tell us what this is. And it's in the wrong folder, and it's got the wrong template applied to it. As we can see over here, our Lil Sebastian appearance request template got applied to that. So now Leslie doesn't get her email, right? And because that urgent request, which was the document that Jerry was importing into the system, goes missing, right? Leslie never sees it, and that means the evil Councilman Jam gets to cut the Parks and Rec Department's budget for the next year because Leslie never responded to his request. Okay. So that is a scenario that can happen without using import profiles. So let's go ahead and take a look at one success example where we actually are going to use import profiles. This time, Donna gets a document from Ben Wyatt because accounting has filed a request via a PDF for a detailed reporting of all expenses incurred from this year's Harvest Festival. Okay. The request is time sensitive, and it was emailed in as a PDF. So Donna went ahead and saved it to her Donna's Documents folder as a PDF. Now Donna's going to use the import profile that she already has set up to import this PDF. So let's just drag and drop it into the system. Notice we're still going to drag it in the Park Projects 2021 folder, right? Because it doesn't matter since we're using the import profile. We're going to find our Use Import Profiles dropdown. We're going to click it, and then we're going to go ahead and select our 2022 budget documents. Notice that Leslie already had set one set up for Jerry, but since he forgot to use it, he didn't even see the helpful note that she wrote for him. So we're going to go ahead and click our import profile. Notice that instantly, as soon as we clicked it, our name got selected automatically, right? That's because Donna is smart and she pre-populated her import profile with accounting requests, right? She knows that all these types of PDFs that are going to come over from accounting, they're all going to be accounting requests. And it's also automatically dated with the correct date today. And finally, down here, or also down here, we can see the folder is already set up to go in the top level folder, and then from there into the 2022 budget folder. And then finally, we can see that the template was applied correctly. And now Leslie's workflow is going to run because this document is going to get created with the correct template, Leslie Nope's urgent documents. So Leslie's going to get that email, and then she's going to go ahead and do whatever she needs to do. So to finish this out, we'll go ahead and click import. I'm going to say automatically rename. And now our form is going to go ahead and get created. You can go ahead and see if we go to our 2022 budget folder that our documents were successfully created in here. This is the earlier one. This is our new one right now. And if we click it, we can see that the Leslie Nope's urgent documents template is applied. Now, maybe when Leslie gets her email, she's going to go in here and actually fill out the rest of this template herself. Right? She's going to do the rest of whatever she needs to do in here, put in the due date, put in, is this a Councilman Jam scam? Well, this one's not because it's from Ben. Is it a request from Sweetums? No. So now she's gone ahead and filled out her template, which is what she actually needed to do in the first place. All right, in our final example, we're going to actually go ahead and create our very own import profile. So in order to do that, we're going to go up here to the upper right-hand portion of our screen and click on our username. And then we're going to click the Options button. Once we've done that, from our left-hand side menu over here, we're going to want to utilize our New Document tab there. And then we're going to scroll to the bottom. When we get to the bottom, we're going to see we have our Import Profile section. Now here, if we wanted to, we can edit or delete existing import profiles that are already set up in the system. Because we're the admin, we're going to see all the profiles that got created. So we're going to see the 2022 budget documents one, and then we're going to see the one that Leslie had initially set up for Jerry. If we need to, we could edit or delete those, but for today, we're going to make our own. So we're just going to click our add button down here. We're going to go ahead and name our profile. It's the first thing we need to do. So in this example, Andy Dwyer is going to be using import profiles. Oops. Let's go ahead and fix that one, shall we? Okay. And in this case, we are going to want to import based on the file name. So we do need to check that box. Once we've done so, we can specify our delimiter here and then enter in our custom file name format. Right? So just like we talked about a moment ago, our delimiter is going to be the dash, right? And then we're going to set up our file name format here. So the first chunk of our file name is going to be the title. Then our second chunk, we can go ahead and add as many as we need to here. This is going to be department. For example, today, we're just going to use 2. You can use as many as you'd like. So now that we've got our file name format, our custom tokens created here, which are title and department, and we've got our delimiter set up, you can go ahead and actually specify how the system is going to name our documents here. So since we made our custom tokens, they're now going to be available in our token menu over here. So you can see they're under the custom tokens header. It's a little small, hopefully you can see that. But how Andy would like to name his is the title, space, department. We could also switch that around if we wanted to. It doesn't matter which order we use these tokens in. Now we're going to use the tokens we created for our file name format to actually file the document as well. We're going to use a combination of an existing folder, and then we might need a new folder to be made, right? So let's use our browser. We're going to select Andy's secret ideas folder. Well, they're not too secret, Andy, if you made them in the top level folder there. We've got our initial location set, and now we need to go ahead and specify our actual path here. Right, so we can do a backslash, and then we can use our token picker again, right? And this time, it's going to be based on department and then the title. So if we hit backslash again and come back to our token picker one final time, we can now pick our title token there. So you can see here we've got our name filled out dynamically based on our tokens, and we've got our document location set to the same. Now, Andy being Andy, he's not too familiar with templates, so he didn't bother assigning a template to this profile. And that is an option as well. Finally, we're going to go ahead and select our volume. We can always use the option of using the parent folder's default volume, or we can specify the volume ourselves if we know it. So cases where you may not know the volume, go ahead and use that parent folder's default volume. And then finally, you can say, is this going to apply to myself, or is it going to apply to the following group? If we wanted to apply it to the following group, we just need to select that radio button and then go ahead and type the group name. Right? So as it is right now, this would get applied to everyone. If you don't want that to be the case, go ahead and click the X there. That'll zero that out, and so now we can go ahead and type whatever group name you actually want to use. Andy doesn't want anybody else to see this because these are his secret ideas, right? So let's go ahead and switch the radio button back to apply to myself. So at this point, our import profile is all created, and we just need to hit OK. You can hit OK, we'll get our little success message popping up there in the top, And if we go to the bottom here, we can see that Andy Dwyer's documents import profile was successfully created. So let's go back to our main repository here. And let's go back to our top level folder. Now we're going to pull up Andy's documents. Andy's emailed himself this rich text document. Now he wants to get it imported into Laserfiche. So remember that our title format, the first part is the title of the idea, and then the second part is the department. So it looks like Andy's got some crazy idea about giving out free burritos from the shoe shine stand. I think those shoe shine fumes might be getting to him a little bit. So when we're ready to go ahead and import this, we're just going to drag and drop it. Remember, it doesn't matter what folder we're in at the moment because of our import profile. When we get our import menu, we're just going to remember to go ahead and use our Use Import Profiles dropdown. And then we're going to select our new one that we just made called Andy Dwyer's Documents. So we've corrected our name automatically. We've got both of those formats applied there. Both of those tokens successfully work. And then we can also see now the real folder name, right? It's going to go on Andy Secret Ideas, and then Ideas for the Shoe Shine Stand, and then in Free Burritos. Now, we didn't pick a template in our actual import profile, but we can still pick one here at our import document menu, right? So if we wanted to, we can go ahead and pick Andy's Ideas template there. If that's how Andy wants to do it, that's a perfectly valid way of doing it. Now we're going to go ahead and hit import. We're going to add, this time we're going to overwrite the existing document. And our file is now successfully created. If we go ahead and look in Andy's Secret Ideas folder, you can see that our shoe shine stand folder was created. And then from there, we've got our Free Burritos idea. And now Andy's idea that he wrote down is successfully filed. All right, and that concludes our demo portion for today. So let's go ahead and go back to our main screen. All right, so let's go ahead and discuss some practical takeaways from today's session. Import profiles, what they really do in a nutshell is allow us to quickly configure default settings for document types, which we frequently need to import, right? That's our main takeaway. If I could bullet point any one thing, that's what it would be today, is the ability to quickly configure those settings, right? It's also a very user-friendly way of configuring settings without necessarily doing a workflow, right? Because workflows can be a little bit intimidating. Another benefit that using an import profile is going to provide is improving quality and consistency in our work, right? We don't want someone who's having a bad day to go ahead and have to manually file something in Laserfiche and then, just like Jerry, forget what year it is, put it in the wrong folder. Now nobody can find the document, right? So it's all about that consistency and that quality. Because it's always going to be consistent, we're never going to go have to go looking for that one missing document, right? Especially when it's urgently needed. Maybe we need it for a meeting that's about to come up, right? And you're expecting it to be there, it's not there. Well, using import profiles, it's always where it's supposed to be. And I'd also like to mention, as some other practical ideas here, like we had discussed in our demo, we can use Laserfiche tools such as workflow in conjunction with import profiles to create a much more powerful and dynamic experience, right? So notifications can be used. You can do pretty much anything you can imagine in conjunction with workflow, import profiles, and other Laserfiche tools. By using multiple different tools such as workflow in conjunction with import profiles, it gives us more options of handling different scenarios, right? This is a request I see a lot from my clients is, they want one thing to happen in one scenario, but a totally different thing to happen in a different scenario. But by using the power of our tools in conjunction with each other, it lets us be as flexible as we possibly can be. Another takeaway is that these profiles, we can train folks to just create their own profiles for themselves, or we could have more admin level people creating profiles for groups, right? So again, lots of flexibility when it comes to how we want to make our import profiles. And I'd encourage everyone to get creative, think outside the box, and think of how this can be used for your team. All right, and with that said, let's go ahead and roll into questions and answer time. So feel free to either raise your hand or type your question in the Q&A section. And like I said, we've got folks from CDI monitoring those. So if we didn't get to your question, we'll definitely respond via email.
It looks like we have a question in the question area. I am not sure where the values for the tokens come from. Can you explain, please? Schmitty, would you mind showing that again?
Sure thing. So let's go back over to our VM here. And then let's go ahead and look at our import profile. Again, to go there, we're just going to go to admin and then options. And then once there, we're going to use our new document. And then we have our import profiles here. We're going to go ahead and edit this. So these are the tokens that I created right here. And you can name these whatever you'd like. And whatever you name them, those tokens will then go ahead and appear in our token menu, right? So what I'm saying right here by filling out this file name format section like this, is I'm indicating to myself that the first chunk of the file name is going to represent the title, and it's going to get assigned that token. And then the second chunk of our file name separated by a dash, because that's what we told it to separate the file name based on. The second chunk of our file name is going to be our department, right? So the system knows that. And now let's look at our actual document that we used in conjunction with our import profile. Andy's already set up his document name with the title and a dash and then a department, right? So when the system interprets this, it's going to say free burritos, that's now the title. And then our department, that's now going to be equal to shoe shine stand. So that's how our tokens get created and populated. If we had more, if we had a longer file name with more dashes in between, we could do a longer file name format here, right? Let me know if that didn't answer the question or if we have any more questions on creating our custom tokens there.
We did have another question come in. What is a common scenario where you would use workflow with the import profile? One scenario I see frequently would be using an autofile workflow. That way, kind of no matter where you are in your repository, you can just pull in the documents into the folder you're in, and the import profile will set the folder path to your one incoming folder or one incoming documents folder or whatever that may be named. And workflow would be able to file the document from there, possibly using just the document names, or if there are just a couple key fields of information populated, the autofile workflow could work off of that as well. Also, spoiler alert, our webinar topic next month is autofile workflows. So if you do have any questions on autofiling workflows or want to learn more about them, definitely attend our webinar next month. All right, we do still have some time available for questions. If there are any other questions, please feel free to either raise your hand in the webinar and we can unmute you, or ask your questions in the Q&A.
Also, I did just want to mention quick that the recording of the webinar today will be available out on our YouTube page. I think we're going to have that put up there by Monday or so. And we're also going to send out an email with a link to that.
All right, I don't see any other questions coming in. If you do have any questions that do come up after the webinar, please feel free to reach out to CDI or your Laserfiche reseller, and we are happy to answer any questions that you do have. Otherwise, thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and enjoy the rest of your week.